Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tuned. We're actually out at the storage unit right now, and I got a bunch of stuff moved out here. I got the hatch out here, and the deli, and Michael's car, and then the Mustang's still stuffed back there, which I actually have a few people that are interested in the car, the Mustang that is. I'm hoping to sell it sort of soon, because if I sell that, then I can literally just go and get, you know, the dyno if I want to buy it or whatever. So that'll be cool if we can get rid of the Mustang. That would greatly help out the channel, and then I wouldn't have to really, you know, work as hard to get the money or whatever. But anyways, I did get some new wheels on my hatch. I don't know if you guys can see these at all, but so I did get some new wheels on the hatch. These are just like I don't know if they're a Rota wheel or what kind of wheel they are. The guy I got them from actually didn't even know what they were. So yeah, I got these for a really good deal. They're 15 by 7s, I believe. So they're a 15-inch wheel, which means I can actually put a drag radial on them. And my plan kind of is to buy a set of like ET Streets, like a 23-inch tall tire, probably like 8 or 9 wide, and then have them for the hatch for the street, and then let Michael use them at the track, because he doesn't really have a whole lot of extra spending money to just go out and buy slicks. So I might end up just buying a set of radials or ET Streets, like I said, for this thing, so I can actually hook up on the street, and then, you know, let Michael borrow them for the track or whatever. He said he might pitch in a couple bucks towards them, so probably work something out there. Other than that, Michael's car's running good. Still has low oil pressure when it's hot. I don't know what's the deal, but when it's cold, it's got high oil pressure. Like if you fired it up right now, it would have 100 pounds oil pressure. Drive it for a half hour, it has like 20. So I don't know. Or I should say it has like 20 at like 3,500 RPM, not at idle. So that seems like it's a little low. It could be just because he has been running 20 weight 50, and we actually switched it over to a 1540, and you know, everything kind of might have gotten used to the 2050, and then we put 1540 in it and kind of screwed everything up. So I don't know, he might change back to 2050 and keep running the car how it is. Other than that, we still got to kind of retune it a little bit. I got to clean up the tune on mine. I'm not really in a rush to do any of this stuff, because I'm not really kind of rushing to race my car anymore, because I mean I went 10s with it. I'm kind of just trying to make it fun to drive on the road and shit, and then obviously I'll race it, you know, when we have track days and stuff. The real reason we're out here right now is that we're going to grab the Del Sol, because we kind of wanted to fix some of the issues that we've been having with it. So I'm gonna hop in this thing. I can't open the door, so I gotta Dukes of Hazzard this shit. Oh, what?
Not as gracefully though.
What do you mean, not as gracefully as Dukes of Hazzard?
Yeah.
Why, do they do it better?
Yeah.
I guess I'm no Bo or Luke. But yeah, so anyways, when this thing's cold, it has a pretty high idle. And when I say high idle, it's like 3 grand. So we're gonna try to address the idling issue. Yeah, like 3,200. My leg's stuck. Okay, so as you see, it idles pretty high, and we are trying to get it to idle, you know, normal. A lot of times on these like factory, you know, ECUs and factory like motors and whatnot, they usually idle at like 2 grand or so, you know, for like the first minute, and then they calm back down to 1,500 or 1,000. And when this thing is warmed up, it idles perfectly fine, but when it's cold, it has that high idle like I was saying. So I'm thinking maybe the idle air control valve is sticking, and it's sticking in the open position, and then once it warms up, it frees up and idles normal. So we're gonna head back to my place with the deli and see if we can address this issue at all, and kind of go over the car with you guys and show you the Del Sol. All right guys, so I am back in the garage now with the Del Sol, and trying to fix this idle issue that it was having. Like I said, when the car is cold, it actually idles high, like 3 grand high, and then after you leave it run for like, I don't know, a minute, it'll start to surge between like 1,000 and 2,500, like pretty violently, and it'll just go wah ba 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 ba. So I got the deli pulled in here, and I just kind of wanted to go over a few different tips for you guys of how to get your Honda to idle properly. at least this is for like a factory car without a chipped ECU or anything like that, is the number one thing that a lot of people look past is engine lights. And I get a lot of messages every day about people that, you know, have issues with their car or whatever, and they want me to help them out. And I always ask them, like, hey, does the car have a check engine light? And the number one answer usually every time is, yeah, but it's just an O2 sensor, or yeah, but it's just this or just that. And a lot of times these idle issues and shit can be fixed with just fixing your check engine light, or at least figuring out why it's on and just fixing the, you know, issue at hand of why the check engine light is on. These cars are so simple to fix a check engine light, it's not even funny. You just jump the little data link connector down by the ECU, count the flashes, Google search it, and you can, you know, figure out why your engine light's on. And a lot of times it's just like a sensor that's not plugged in, or a sensor that's mixed matched with another sensor, or something simple like that. But anyways, to get the idle sorted out, a lot of times if you don't have a check engine light and you still have the idle issue like this car has, I would start by checking for vacuum leaks. And what I would do is I would just start the car up, grab some of my famous Walmart brake cleaner, and just spray along like the intake face where the intake actually bolts to the cylinder head. I spray a bunch there, spray around the injectors, spray around the throttle body, and the idle air control valve. If you spray around all those areas and the idle doesn't come up nor go down, and it just continues to be the same, more than likely you don't have a vacuum leak. That's at least like a simple way to test it. You can get like an actual smoke machine and stuff like that to further diagnose it, but a lot of times if you have a big enough vacuum leak for the car to idle this high at like $3,000, you will notice it by just spraying a little bit of brake cleaner around the area. The next idle issue with these cars a lot of times is the idle air control valve. Sometimes they get sticky and gummed up. It's not that common. A lot of, like, you know, back in the early 2000s and shit with Honda tech, a lot of guys would just blame the idle air control valve, and there's 100 write-ups on how to clean it. You just pop the two 12mm bolts that hold it onto the intake manifold, pop the coolant lines and the plug off of the back of it, take it off, and just kind of spray it out with brake cleaner, spray it out with air, compressed air, or just leave it air dry for a little while, throw it back on and see if it fixes it. Now, I already did both of these things. I did the idle air control valve, I cleaned it, and I checked the intake manifold perimeter there, and that also did not come up with any result. So I'm moving on, and I actually pulled the throttle body completely off, because this is the number one reason why these cars usually idle funky or idle high, and it is the fast idle valve that is on the throttle body itself. So the fast idle valve actually bolts on with 3 bolts right here to the throttle body and has 2 coolant lines hooked up to it here. So these things are pretty much just a, you know, way to get the idle to run a little bit higher when it's cold, and then once the coolant starts flowing through it with hot coolant, it'll actually shut the valve and then, you know, lower the idle like this car is doing. You can actually bypass these completely. I hate fast idle valves with a passion, just because they kind of just, you know, cause these stupid issues. And you can buy block off plates for them, so you can just take the 3 bolts out and then put the plate on that blocks it off, and then loop the coolant lines that go to the fast idle valve. So the one that goes down here and then the one that goes here, you just kind of hook them together with a piece of, you know, straight barb fitting or whatever like that, and that would fix your issue. I've also made like homemade plates. Shout out to Young Static, he kind of gave me that idea a little while ago, and I did that on my the B20V CRX. I actually blocked off the fast idle valve with a piece of sheet steel, you know, and I just drilled the holes out and then put RTV around the sheet steel, and that kind of blocked the fast idle valve off too. So another thing that you can do if you don't have a block off plate or don't want to make a block off plate is you can actually take this little cover off here that holds, it's just a cover that goes over this little diaphragm for the fast idle valve, and you can actually take a flathead screwdriver and you can turn this thing in. I already did on this one, but you pretty much just take a flathead, like I said, on the outside. So you would take a screwdriver on the outside and then just spin, you would just spin this whole white piece, you know, you would turn it clockwise and spin it in. This thing was actually like almost all the way out, probably just from, you know, old age and vibration and stuff. So, you know, when you turn them in, a lot of the times they'll back out over time, and that's why I usually just like to block them off completely. But I just turned this one in all the way, and now I'm gonna reinstall the plate back on, reinstall the throttle body back onto the car, and we'll fire this thing up and see if it still has the high idle. Okay guys, so I got the throttle body reback installed, and So to take the throttle body off, I didn't really cover that, but it's 4 12mm bolts around the perimeter. You got the map sensor, evap line, TPS sensor, the 2 coolant lines that go into the fast idle valve, and then the throttle cable. I got it all back installed onto the car, and we're gonna see how this thing idles now. This should take care of the problem. I'm almost 1000% sure that we're gonna be all dog pile chicken smile now. And the car is still really cold. Like, I honestly haven't ran this car in 2 hours. I haven't ran it since I pulled the throttle body off, and even then it was still stone cold, so it should idle high unless we fixed it. Look at that shit, guys. Is that like 1500 maybe? 1400? Which is exactly where it should be when it's cold. And then as it warms up, the idle will drop back down to, like, you know, that 1000 RPM region. But hell yeah, dude, this thing's idling like a champ now. All right, so you guys probably also heard that little bit of belt squeal that it had going on when it first started up. It seems to only squeal when you first start it, and it seems to squeal, you know, just at like really low RPM and shit like that. And when you rev it up, the squeal goes away. This is another really common thing with these cars is, well, the power steering here isn't even hooked up. It's just kind of dangling here, so that is not going to be our squealing. So the only other belt that has, you know, the ability to squeal is going to be this alternator belt down here. You can kind of just go push on it with your hands, and if there's like play in it, like, it should be fairly tight to where you can barely move it. And this one, you know, definitely has some up and down play to it. So this just needs to be tightened up. So there's a 12mm bolt on the top and then a 14mm bolt on the bottom. And then I usually just take a pry bar on the alternator to pry it back as far as I can. And then with the pry bar on the alternator prying back on the belt, I'll tighten up the 12mm bolt on the top and then the 14mm on the bottom. And that should get rid of that belt squeal, because if the belts are loose, it's going to squeal like that. But other than that, the only other thing I have to do to this car is fix the exhaust leak. It has an exhaust leak like right at the, you know, after the header where it bolts onto the rest of the catback exhaust. I think it's just a factory exhaust actually, but I'm probably going to address that tomorrow or the next day possibly. I can't really do a whole lot with it tonight because I don't have any gas for my welder, and I'm sure I'm going to have to weld a piece of pipe somewhere or do something like that to fix that exhaust leak that's going on. And I also kind of wanted to put, I have a Skunk 2 Mega Power muffler here, and I kind of wanted to throw this muffler on the back of this thing and give it some noise, because I think, like I said, it's a stock exhaust, but it has a header. So if I fix the exhaust leak, it'll stop sounding like shit. And then if I put like an actual, you know, performance muffler on the back, it'll sound, you know, good, and you know, I will like it. In other news, I also have been doing some stuff on the side. I've been making videos like every other day. Hopefully that's okay with you guys. I feel like I go every day and then every other day and then every 3 days and kind of just all over the place. There's really no schedule here lately, just because I've been, you know, just overwhelmed with the amount of support that you guys have been giving, and the website orders have been ridiculous. I can't thank you guys enough. But anyways, in other news, we got the Del Sol back at home now. So the Del Sol is actually here at the garage, so we can actually work on it a little bit, because like I said, all my tools and shit are here. But I've also been assembling this GSR long block. This is the CSS GSR that was on the channel probably like a month or so ago, and we took it to the machine shop, got it decked, got the head decked, and then you assembled the bottom end with Wiseco pistons, flat tops, and eagle rods, king bearings, stock crank, all that kind of good stuff. And when I went to assemble the head on it last month or whenever, found out that a couple of the head bolts inside of the block were stripped. So the guy actually picked the block up, took it to a different machine shop, and the other machine shop actually fixed all of the bolt holes. They actually redid every single one of them, which is super cool. So I got the head torqued onto this thing. Yeah, so this thing should be all good to go. Torque the head down. I just got to throw the cams in it, and then I got to throw the timing belt on and the intake manifold. And this thing's probably set to be on its way out the door for him to go put the motor in, and then he's going to bring the motor or the whole car back to me so we can install the turbo kit and do all that happy jizz jazz. so I'm gonna get the rest of this thing assembled here quick, and then in the next day or two I also have to work on this car. This is the Nightmare Wire Rat Nest car that we worked on a couple months ago. This is a brown Integra with a LS VTEC, or no, it's a GSR actually. We pulled this motor out of a four-door GSR, it was in a four-door Integra, it was a GSR, and we pulled it out of that car, swapped it into this one, rewired everything, and got it looking how it is now. With the turbo kit and everything installed, we ended up boosting it for him and tuning it and etc. But we ended up running out of fuel injector while we were tuning. So he proceeded to drive the car and take it back home, drive it for a little while, and discovered that the turbo head went bad. So the turbo that was on there, when we put it together, I did warn the customer that, hey, this thing's got some shaft play. I don't know how long it's really going to last you, etc., etc., and it ended up going out within a month. So he swapped on another eBay turbo. This is just like a Godspeed 50 trim or whatever, and he slapped that thing on there, and it still smokes and doesn't make any boost. So there's no boost leaks on the car, but it does have, like I said, a bad turbo on it currently. So he brought it back to me so we can do fuel injector upgrades, retune, and swap on a VS Racing. I'm going to go with a 3076 on this one, so you guys can see what the 3076 is all about. That turbo will support 450 horsepower, no problems. It's more of a smaller turbo, so we'll get a little bit quicker spool out of it and all that happy jazz. So we're going to work on this thing in the next day or two, like I said, guys. But I got to get this long block put back together so he can come pick that thing up. I have to flow a couple sets of injectors for the website again, and then we'll be back to our normal scheduled programming. But also in other news, I got rid of that Yamaha V-Star like I was telling you guys, and I traded it for a Honda ST 1100. That was like it's like a Goldwing touring bike. It's got a 4-cylinder V motor, and I ended up trading that big ol' freaking grandpa cruiser for this 01 Triumph Daytona 955i. And this thing is freaking sweet, guys. I really enjoy this bike. I actually traded the guy earlier today, and that bike, I paid $1,200 for that V-Star, and then I got that Honda ST 1100, and now I got this 01 Triumph. So this thing, I looked at the value on it, and they go between $3,000 and $4,000. So I'm hoping I can make some even more money on this thing. I'm hoping. But in the meantime, I am enjoying the shit out of it. I actually got it, like I said, today, and the chain was really loose, so I had to adjust the chain because it was, like I said, it was super loose. So I just readjusted the chain and got everything else happy with it. Checked the oil, all that kind of stuff. He said he just did an oil change and shit, so I just verified that. But this bike's got brand new brake pads in the front and rear, brand new tires front and rear, and yeah, it's a freaking animal, guys. Hear that fuel pump? It's fuel injected for 2001. So Triumph was definitely ahead of their time. This bike is fuel injected, so that's pretty slick. It has a stock pipe on it and shit, which is super annoying. I hate bikes with stock exhaust. Just because I like to be loud and I like to be heard for all the dipshits on the road that definitely don't see it coming kind of thing. It's always kind of terrifying riding on the street, and I don't really like doing it, but it definitely is a huge, stress reliever and shit to get out on a motorcycle once in a while and just get in the wind. I really do enjoy motorcycles, like I said, guys. I know I haven't really included motorcycles a whole lot on the channel. So if you guys want to see more bike stuff, you should drop it down in the comments and just say like, hey Hunter, you should do more bike videos or whatever. I always wanted, like when I first started the channel, I was going to do moto vlogs and just put a GoPro on my helmet and, just bullshit with you guys kind of thing. And kind of give reviews of motorcycles or whatever, which would be super cool because I got a couple buddies with bikes. I got one of my really good buddies has a stretched and lowered ZX14 with nitrous, and then I also have a buddy with a turbocharged Hayabusa, which I would love to get a Busa one day. That's kind of one of my dream bikes. I would like to get one of those, but you know, whatever, but figured I'd give you an update on that. So we're kind of undecided of what we want to do with the car. We don't know if we want to do like a stock Z6 and just throw ARP head studs in it and boost it with like a small turbo, like a T25 turbo, and do it kind of, you know, cheap junkyard, backyard kind of style. Or if we want to take the Z6 out and build it and do like go all out with a single cam, or if we want to B swap it, or if we want to K swap it, or what we want to do. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, go K swap, go K swap. Bitch, I ain't got that kind of money. Unless if somebody wants to donate me a fucking K swap and K Pro and all the jizz jazz. I really don't see a K swap in my future anytime soon, just because this shit is ridiculously expensive, especially around by me. You could probably find a full swap for around $1,000, but I mean, even $1,000 is a lot of money. Plus, you got to get the mounts and you got to get the axles and all that freaking shit. So, I don't really. I mean, a stock B20V would probably hang with a K20A2 all day, in my opinion. So, I mean, I like B series, like you guys know. I don't hate K series. I just don't like building them yet because they're still expensive. They need to. You know, the value of them needs to come down, which I feel that it will in the next few years. You know, K-Series motors might become more relevant and readily available for, you know, people that are on a budget. But for the time being, honestly, I know how to build a all-motor car. I know how to build motors and make horsepower with what I got. So I don't really see... Like, a K-swap would be cool for somebody that, like, doesn't know how to build an engine or doesn't know how to, like, turbo a car or tune a car or anything like that, because the K-Series stock makes very good power and, you know, is a good choice for somebody, like I said, that doesn't want to go through all the hassle of tuning and the hassle of, you know, building an engine and all that kind of stuff, or turboing a car or whatever. Avid ones are looking good. I also started working on the Integra here. I got the 750cc injectors installed into it because, like I said, when he brought it to me, it had RC 440s, and we ran out of fuel injector fairly early tuning. I think it ran out of fuel around 7 pounds of boost, or 8 pounds of boost maybe. So I ended up throwing a set of their eBay 750cc injectors in it. Some of the eBay injectors I've had really good luck with, and then some of them I haven't had good luck with at all. These ones are actually out of another car that I tuned, and the guy kind of donated the injectors for this guy. So I actually took the injectors and I put them in my flow bench and made sure they flowed good. And these things are rock solid. They flow great. So I threw them into the car here. So, but other than that, I got this thing running good. Like I said, I threw the ostrich in it, got it tuned for the 750s, and now we just have to wait for the turbo to get here tomorrow. All right, guys, so I just got done taking the car around the block, and car's running a lot better. The idle is pretty much right where it's supposed to be, and is idling a lot more normal. But I did notice when I drove the car, I haven't really driven this thing a whole lot since I bought it. You know, driving the car around, it was rattling and clunking a lot, and found the culprit of why it's rattling and clunking. And it's funny because if you have one issue with a car that you're trying to fix, sometimes it fixes a bunch of stuff all in one. And this is one of those instances where I said the car had an exhaust leak that I wanted to fix, and turns out that that is why it was rattling as well. Because look at this. This thing was literally just loose onto the header, so the whole exhaust system was just rattling around. This heat shield was hose clamped because this was rattling as well, and yeah, so I'm just gonna cut the cat right out of this thing because I don't like catalytic converters anyways, and I don't have emissions where I'm at. So if you have emissions, I'm sorry, you know, it sucks to be you. I guess I shouldn't really talk too much shit because it's going to be inevitable everywhere. I think emissions is going to be one of those things that, you know, you're going to have to go through everywhere soon. I'm just fortunate enough in my county, in my state, you know, we don't have to do emissions testing. So I'm going to cut that cat out of there, hopefully gain some horsepower while we're at it. So I cut the cat out, and I have the header over here on the ground as well, because where the flange was bolted onto the header, all that flange and shit was just rotted right out. So I'm actually going to weld a piece of pipe onto the end of the header there, and then cut this flex joint out of this piece of pipe that I had laying around, and then weld that onto there, and then weld that to the rest of the exhaust. and then I can still remove it at the back flange, way in the back. So I plan on doing all that, but unfortunately my welder is out of gas, and I tried welding without the gas, and yeah, it just looks like shit. So unfortunately my wire for my welder is like for gas only, and if you try welding without the gas, it literally doesn't even weld. So I'm gonna have to wait till tomorrow so I can get my bottle filled back up on the welder, so we can get this thing back together. Hopefully, I feel like it's gonna be a whole new freaking car, guys. I love kind of tinkering with stock cars like this with a few issues. I hate buying a car that's like perfect. I hate that, because then I can't make it my own, and I can't make it, you know, special, and, you know, fix it and make it, you know, give it some sentimental value, if you know what I mean. So like I said, I just pulled the header off and cut the exhaust off since I got home. And I was also looking over this thing a little bit, and the power steering and stuff was all hooked up, but it wasn't actually mounted to the bracket. The power steering pump was just kind of chilling in the engine bay. And I don't know why they had it like that. I just pulled the hose off, and I'm like, well, whatever, I'll just delete it, because I figured the pump was seized. But the pump spins like freely and doesn't make any noise. So I'm thinking that maybe this guy just had a bad belt or something and said screw it, and he just deleted the power steering belt, and then just took the bolts out of this thing because there was no bolts. So I just put bolts in here, and I'm probably going to go get a belt for it and hook the power steering back up, because, you know, why not? If it's all there, might as well just hook it up. It's really not in the way of a turbo kit. If I were to turbo it, I could probably keep the power steering, and you know, that might be kind of cool to have, since like none of my other cars have power steering. It might be kind of nice to have power steering on something like this, especially because my girlfriend's going to drive it quite a bit, and she wants to have fun with this car as well. So I'm trying to get it. I'm kind of just going to see how the car is all motor for a little while. We're going to fix the exhaust and all the stupid little quirks with the car and get it sounding as good as we can. I might do an exhaust comparison. Avid ones are looking good. I also started working on the Integra here. I got the 750cc injectors installed into it, because like I said, when he brought it to me, it had RC 440s, and we ran out of fuel injector fairly early tuning. I think it ran out of fuel around 7 pounds of boost, or 8 pounds of boost maybe. So I ended up throwing a set of their eBay 750cc injectors in it. Some of the eBay injectors I've had really good luck with, and then some of them I haven't had good luck with at all. These ones are actually out of another car that I tuned, and the guy kind of donated the injectors for this guy. So I actually took the injectors and I put them in my flow bench and made sure they flowed good. And these things are rock solid. They flow great. So I threw them into the car here. So get a new front bumper for it and a whole bunch of stuff. So be sure to subscribe if you guys haven't already, and stay tuned for more updates on the Del Sol. I'm very excited to go drive this car. I'd love to go take it on some fucking roundabouts and just wail on it around a corner, because that's what slow cars are good at. And like, I'm not hating on slow cars. I'm just saying, like, that's exactly what slow cars are good at, is taking a corner really fast. Fast cars, you can't corner them, so you got to go in a straight line. But, you know, you get what I'm saying, guys. So, anyways, gonna get the turbo for the Integra, work on the deli some more tomorrow, and, yeah, whatever. So I'll see you guys later. Have a good night.